All right, good morning, everyone. I would like to call the June 15th, 2022 Bureau of Household Goods and Services Advisory Council meeting to order. My name is Justin Paddock. I am Chief of the Bureau. This morning, we're actually going to have what's called a hybrid council meeting. Mainly, we actually have a physical location here in Sacramento. In addition to that, members of the public are allowed to remote in through our WebEx, and we're also going to be webcasting this meeting. On that note, it's been a while since I've noticed a meeting under Bagley-Keene just because of COVID. I inadvertently did not notice a physical location in Southern California for our 2 advisory council members. Because of that, Pascal Benyamini and Bert Grimes will be acting as members of the public today. I do want to thank them for their participation. We will note their presence in our meeting minutes, but they will today not be acting as council members. Instead, they'll be acting as members of the public. Any questions from the council on that just before I proceed? Okay. With that, if anyone's curious, there's also a bill in the Assembly at the moment, Assembly Bill 1733 by Quirk, which is considering making some changes to the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act so that more remote options are available. At the moment, it is parked in the Assembly, but both the Department of Consumer Affairs as well as the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency are in support of that bill, and we will continue to track it. If it does pass, I'll brief the council as well as provide some information on the website about how our October meeting will be run, but we're sort of in a wait and see approach at the moment on that. A couple of just other housekeeping items before I move on. Since our last meeting, the Advisory Council's term expired. It actually expired in April. I want to thank all the council members for reapplying. And I also want to thank the DCA Executive Office for the quick review, and we were able to reappoint quite a few of our Advisory Council members, so thank you so much for your service. In addition to that, we're looking for additional council members. So anyone who's logged in as a member of the public today who may be interested in applying, please feel free to contact me. My direct line is 916-999-2080. Just one more time in case you're looking to write it. But if you wouldn't mind, Solid, if you could put my number in the chat, I'd appreciate it as well. It is 916-999-2080. And I'll be happy to talk to you about serving on our council, sort of what that entails, et cetera. Also, if you know anyone who's interested, please feel free to pass it along. With that, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce one of the Bureau's many not new hires, but promotions. It's Ashley Ryder. Ashley is going to be joining us for all of our council members for all of our council meetings moving forward. She's doing all the logistics and making me look like I know what I'm doing up here. So Ashley, thank you so much. And with that, Ashley, would you call the roll?
Good morning. Pascal Benyamini, who is absent in their official capacity but participating as a member of the public. Bert Grimes, who is absent in their official capacity but participating as a member of the public. Donald Lucas.
Present.
Dan Rhodes.
Present.
Toby Taylor, who has an excused absence. And Steve Weidecamp.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. I'd also like to welcome Bureau staff here today, as well as our DCA Legislative Counsel, Michael Knotts, who's joining us on the dais up here, as well as Ann Fisher and David Boulay, who are joining us remotely, who are going to be the moderators for public comment during our meeting today. So thank you so much, Solid. As well as Mike Sanchez, who's going to be handling our video needs for today. Thank you so much. In addition to that, the last of my housekeeping items, I promise, and then we'll move on. In the event that we need to evacuate this room, we have 2 exits, one right here, which will take you right outside, and also one in the back. And we have a restroom. The male restroom is right outside the store straight ahead, and if you go around this U, the female restroom is just on the other side. And with that, I'd like to just say the last few months we've been very busy hiring. Kelly, who'll be joining us for our admin update later, has been hard at work trying to fill a lot of our vacancies. That's been a huge priority for us. What I will say is the things I wanted to get to, but I didn't, and so I need to promise you now you will see in October are a few. One of which is I want a solid outreach plan for the remainder of the year, which I have not done yet, as well as a solid plan to carry us through 2023. Next, I want to provide you details on 2 household mover sting operations by the time October gets here. And last but not least, I want to give you a thorough update on ignition interlock devices. So I plan to start meeting with state counterparts between now and the next meeting. And so with that, any council comments just on the opening items? Ann and David, any members of the public who want to make any comment on the opening items?
We are now taking public comment on any of the opening items. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to return to the agenda?
Yes, thank you so much. So we'll move on to agenda item number 2, which is public comment for any items not on the agenda. In this, what I would like to ask before any member of the public would like to make a comment, if you have an application or a complaint or disciplinary charges pending before the Bureau, I ask that you not discuss the details of that case during your, while that issue is pending. If your comments are related to a specific agenda item, you can certainly wait till that agenda item. You're also welcome to speak now. So that, again, is your choice. And then please note, as we go through each of these agenda items, we'll ask for public comment each time as you're considering when you'd like to speak. And with that, any members of the council who'd like to make any items not on the agenda today? David, any members of the public who'd like to make any comments?
We are now taking public comment on agenda item 2. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, would you like to return to the agenda?
Yes, thank you so much. All right, so moving on to agenda item number 3, which is to review the January 20th Advisory Council meeting minutes. Those actually start on page 14 of your packet and walks you through what I hope is an accurate description of what happened January 20th. But first, I'd like to open up to the council for any comments, any edits you'd like to request, et cetera.
I move that we accept the minutes as drafted.
Okay, got it. We won't take a vote today, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And with that, Dan, any members of the public who'd like to make any comments on the minutes?
We are taking public comment on the meeting minutes. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. Once again, we're going to take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, would you like to return to the agenda?
Yes, thank you. So we will now move on to agenda item number 4, which is the review of our strategic plan. First and foremost, our January meeting was a bit longer, and I certainly appreciate the Advisory Council's participation while we worked on the strategic plan. I also want to give a huge thanks to Solid. Solid not only facilitated the surveys that went with the environmental scan to start developing this strategic plan. After our input in January, their team put together the report that you're seeing before you. My staff and I had an opportunity to review it. We made a few tweaks that I'll sort of go through in detail as we walk through the document. But for the most part, I hope it characterizes what we captured in our January meeting. So I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone on that. Again, I'm going to take this in pieces. The first piece I'd like to do is essentially the intro section of the document, which is pages 23 through 29 of your packet. The only major change in this intro portion that the Bureau staff did is we just specifically called out that this was the January 20th council who assisted on the strategic plan, just because the membership has changed. Everything else essentially is what Solid prepared and what was presented. So with that, after this, I'll move into each goal, and we'll just take each goal one at a time. But with that, did the council members have any comments, any edit requests, et cetera, for anything in the introduction portion of the document, which is, again, 23 through 29? Okay. Dan, would you mind asking if any members of the public?
We are now open for public comment on agenda item 4. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no requests for public comment, would you like to return to the agenda?
Yes. So we will move to goal 1, which is going to be on page 30. The only tweak that Bureau staff did here is objective 1.2, I'll direct your attention to. It used to say review and enhance customer service, and then in parentheses it said if necessary. We just removed the if necessary because it's always a good idea to continue to review on this and report to the council as opposed to making some determination by myself that it wasn't necessary in that particular session of our time. So again, that was the only change made in these first 4 objectives in goal number 1. Any questions or comments from the council? Any edits they'd like to see?
I like the proactive language change.
Is your mic on?
I like the proactive language change, taking out the reactive language. I think it's great to do a constant review and enhancement.
Got it. Thank you.
Opposed for waiting for the complaint to come.
Got it. Anything else from the council? Okay. Dan, if you could open it up to the public.
We are once again open for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to return to the agenda?
Yes, thank you. So we'll move on to page number 31, which is goal number 2. We did a little bit more editing here, so I'll go slow and just sort of walk you through what the changes were. So I'll direct your attention once to goal 2.1. The way that it used to read compared to what it reads now is it used to read establish processes and procedures to provide, create, and enhance consistency, accountability of all the regulated populations. Essentially what we did here is just some wordsmithing to try to better capture the discussion we thought we had. So again, I'm more than happy to read it for everyone again, but we just thought it read better the way it currently is constituted in your page 31. But how it previously read was establish processes and procedures to provide, create, and enhance consistency and accountability of all the regulated populations. And then again, I'll move on to item 2.5. In item 2.5, we just added interstate. So that was included. And that was just to get more to the point of the discussion as well. So with that, any concerns by the council?
No concern, just boot stomping the positive impact of 2.2 and 2.5. We're totally in favor of that.
I guess my only question is on 2.2, if sting operation is a well-established term.
I would say it is in DCA, but I think that's a fair point, that the purpose of this document is for members of the public to appreciate what our goal is. So I think what I'd like to do, with your permission, is we will kind of explain that a little bit more so that it is accessible to people who aren't in the Bureau operations.
Good.
Okay. Thank you, Donald. Any other comments from the council?
Well, question on the interstate. What help me understand that from a general public view. What does that mean for us, unpermitted interstate movers?
So essentially, because this specific item speaks to the federal, the FMCSA, our relationship with them solely relates to interstate movers as opposed to intrastate movers. And so that we've just added a little bit more detail there.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. Any additional comments from the council? All right, Jan, if you can open it up, or I'm sorry, David, if you can open it up to the public.
We are now open for public comment on goal item 2. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And while we're waiting to see if we have a request for public comment, I would like to point out that we just posted a quote-unquote question where if you would like to volunteer to serve on the BHGS Advisory Council, you can contact Chief Justin Paddocks at the following number. And seeing no requests for public comment, would you like to return to the agenda?
That'd be great, thank you. All right, moving on to goal item number 3, which you're going to find on page 32 of your packet. We essentially rephrased item 3.3 to change what I'll call the why. I apologize for sounding a bit, what is that, cliche. What we used to say is from advertising the value of the Bureau's actions, and we just changed that to what we think the why really is, which is to inform consumers of industry violations. Again, when we reviewed the conversation, I think we just would have polished it in the room. I wasn't paying attention close enough to that particular verbiage. So with that, that was the only change. I'm sorry, and then in item number 3.5, we cut off the end of it. It used to end with "to effectively utilize resources," which we just thought was superfluous language. With that, any comments or concerns from the council on those edits?
So my question is related to 3.3, and this could be, interpreted in several different ways. Are we talking about informing the public as far as statistics, or actually giving names of companies that are bad actors that consumers should be leery of?
It's actually both. So in the instance of statistics, it'll be what you're accustomed to have already been seen and what you will cover in agenda item number 5 today. But in addition to that, once an action is final, so just to give you some examples, and Michael, cut me off if I get this wrong. If a citation is issued, through the course of that appeal process, no one would be aware of that. But once that citation stands, either through an administrative hearing or a citation review conference, once essentially the due process element or the appeal has run and it is final, that would be published on our website so that individuals would know when the Bureau is taking discipline on a particular, I'll say licensee. In your instance, obviously it's permittee, but licensee is my shorthand. You'll know that action.
Yeah. Good. We're in support of that.
Any additional comments from the council? All right, David, if you wouldn't mind opening it to the public for goal number 3.
Wonderful. We are once again open for public comment on goal item 3. This time, if you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take about 15 seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. We have a request for comment from Pascal Benamini. Hold on just a moment, please, and we will send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Good morning, Bureau Chief Paddock. The comment I had was regarding 3.3 that we were just discussing. My suggestion would be to add at the end of the sentence that it's when the violations are final. So there's no ambiguity that just in the event the Bureau deems it a violation, that the members of the public are automatically entitled to the information.
I think that makes sense. With your permission, Pascal, I think I'll work with counsel just to polish how we phrase final. But otherwise, I think that that's a good addition.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And next we have a request from Bert Grimes. Bear with us just a moment. We're sending you a request to unmute your microphone.
Good morning. Quick question. How are we going to make sure that our website keeps updated with these industry violations? I know in the past we could be 3, 4, 6 months behind.
So we've actually just started a new procedure. In essence, what we will be doing while we're waiting for business modernization to complete is we will be taking it in quarters. And so I can sort of walk you through some detail of that, but I apologize if I bore everyone. At the end of each quarter, we're essentially going to let 30 days go by, and then we are going to run a report. Just that 30 days allows for data inputting by staff. Once that report's run, we will actually update our tables for any action that was taken in the previous quarter. We're actually going to then work with our hearing officer and those who assist our hearing officer to make sure anything that's currently pending some form of appeal is removed from that list. But will actually be put in a side bucket that we will repost in the following quarter once their appeal is essentially complete. So they'll sort of be in a waiting area while we wait on the process of their case. We are looking at making this much more efficient in our business modernization process, but that's to come as we're working on updating our IT system. And just as a reminder, Fauna will go into some detail later in the meeting. HHM will be the first, roughly fall of this year. That'll be complete. And then both EAR and HUFD will be sometime early next year. But that's the process in a nutshell. Does that answer your question, Bert?
Yes.
I have a follow-up question to that. Is there a count of open investigations against companies that are easily publicized? Because what if a company has got a few of them and they're still able to conduct business and nobody can see what's actually going on in the background?
During the process of an open complaint, no, because an investigator could make a lot of determinations. So, for example, an investigator could find that the issue that was complained about was not jurisdictional, and we may need to refer it to a completely different state agency because of that. We could also conclude that there was no violation. So only after an investigation is complete and that licensee has had the opportunity for what I would call, quote unquote, their day in court, we're not permitted to publicize that.
So until due process happens, then we can't.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Michael, anything to add?
No, I think you said it quite well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any additional comments from the public?
At the moment, there are no additional requests for public comment.
I have just another question about publicizing items and things like that. Does DCA have a common platform or a common way of reporting that you have to follow, or can you develop your own?
I will not answer that question well because I would be speculating. We certainly, as a conglomeration of programs that answer to DCA, we do it very similarly. For example, we compile statistics overall of our enforcement actions and various steps in that enforcement process, which we call performance measures. We also do that with licensing, but when it comes to specific enforcement actions, unfortunately, I will have to get back to you just because I don't have the detail, but I can certainly follow up with you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just making a note to myself. And David, any additional public comment?
No requests at this time. Do you wish to
Okay.
return to the agenda?
Yeah, thank you so much. So moving on to goal number 4, which you can find on page 33 of our packet. The staff actually made no changes to this area. So it was drafted the day of as it reads at the moment. And with that, I'll open it to the council to see if there's any comment. Seeing none, oh,
Just one comment.
yeah.
On 4.2, just to reiterate something that I frequently have said is that the Household Movers Act addresses brokers as an entity that requires the same level of permit status as movers. And so just for the record, I want to ensure that every time we talk about the Household Movers Act, we mention that brokers are a classification that should fall exactly under that same category.
Any additional comments from the council? All right, David, if you wouldn't mind asking for public comment.
Absolutely. We are once again open for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to return to the agenda?
Yes, thank you. So moving on to our last goal area, which is goal item number 5, which is on page 34 of our packet. This is probably where we did the most reorganization. So I'm going to try to talk about this comprehensively. And what I wish I would have done, but I'll live and learn and do my best, is to sort of give you a track changes of this page. But I'll do my best to summarize it. So in this area, we actually tried to combine 5.5 and what used to be 5.6. I'll read those to you shortly. And we actually removed improved morale from 5.4. The reason that we did this is there was a lot of overlap between these objectives, and when we as staff were thinking about how we were going to report to you, I felt like we were going to say a lot of the same things for each of these goal areas. So we essentially tried to polish it. So in item number 5.5, what we used to say is that we would assess issues impacting Bureau morale and improve employee engagement. And in 5.6, we previously read facilitate staff team building and improve camaraderie and increase collaboration among staff. What we essentially tried to do is this new 5.5, which we think is a joining of those two principles. And we removed camaraderie because I don't know how to measure it and report that to you. I think we certainly can report on collaboration. I think I can report to you on how morale is doing, but camaraderie was a little bit hard for me. I wasn't sure how to actually do that. So that was the reason for what I will admit is quite a bit of heavy polishing here. And because of that, I'm happy to essentially put that on the website and send that to the council as we're considering that if you like, or we can just proceed. But with that, I'll sort of give you the opportunity for both and just see if there's any council comment in the room today.
I'd like the idea of not having the that metric of that you really can't measure, so that's good. And I think it's fine that you combine 5.5 and 5.6.
Okay.
I don't have any problem with the way it is now.
Okay. Okay.
I second that. My question would be is how do we measure morale? in that sense? Is it through a survey of employees? What route do we go for that?
So essentially, there's a couple of things that I'm going to be doing throughout the course of any given year. Some of them are going to be having one-on-ones with staff, especially anyone I identify who just clearly has indicated some sort of concern or issue with the Bureau, which is my obligation to do in the first place. In addition to that, I'm holding quarterly meetings, which is an all-hands meeting with staff. And I think just by virtue of, I'm certainly not trying to brag about myself, but by managing for the amount of years that I have, I'm at least getting a good sense to that, that when people are sort of happy, have a little bit of spring in their step. And so while I can't give you a metric of on a scale of 1 to 10, I am happy to report at this point I am seeing an improvement in morale, but we do have a long way to go. And I would essentially be commenting on that at each of our meetings to you.
Okay. Fair enough. My thought would be to maybe instill some sort of quarterly or biannual anonymous review where somebody can do a 360 review of maybe their job or the Bureau themselves or us or you or something of that nature, and kind of actually have hey, this is where we're at, here's our baseline, and here's, next time here's where we're going to improve on or what we're going to change.
I do like that idea. I will raise that with DCA. I think because of a resource issue, we couldn't do it that often, but I do think it's a good idea for each program to do that periodically. Yeah.
I have a few ideas on that offline that we can talk about on different groups we could use to even possibly get some of that stuff donated.
Got it. And then much to Donald's chagrin, I won't be able to replicate my numbers on the morale quantitatively, but I'll do my best.
Okay. One other comment I have is it seemed like the solid review of employee comments, and I guess it had to do with morale, was a good thing. Can they do it on a yearly basis, for instance?
I'm not sure if it could be that frequent because of their resources, but I agree with you. That environmental scan, I would say hands down, was the #1 best document that I had at my disposal coming in as a new chief. And I think it's a very valuable document that should be periodically done. I'll work with essentially my counterparts at DCA to see how often I can do it.
Right, or if you can't, if they can't do it, if you could use their methods and,
Got it.
Questionnaire type, that would be good.
Got it.
Because I think that survey showed me at least some of the issues in the staff that I wasn't aware of.
Agreed. Any additional comments from the council on Goal 5? All right, David, if you wouldn't mind opening it to the public, Goal number 5.
We are open for public comment on number 5. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to return to the agenda?
I do. So we will wrap up this item with just the last 2 pages. 35 and 36 are essentially the conclusion. Bureau staff made no changes. Once again, I certainly would like to thank Solid as well as this council for all the assistance moving through this process. And with that, I'll open it one last time for any comments from the council.
I just want to compliment all the people involved with that for the job they did. I think it was a good process and a good document you've ended up with.
Agreed. Solid, that's a huge thanks to Solid. With that, David, could you open it to public comment?
We are now accepting public comment on the conclusion. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment to the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to return to the agenda?
Yes, thank you so much. So with that, I and Bureau staff will work with the DCA Executive Office to finalize this document in the coming weeks. My hope is sometime by mid-July that I'll have it up on our website. And then at each of our council meetings moving forward over the course of the next few years, I'll also finalize how long I think that this strategic plan should be in place until we should actually do a new one. Typically, we're given a choice of somewhere between 3 and 5 years. I think because of the sort of transition the Bureau has been in, I think a shorter time period is better for a reassessment. But again, I'll work with several counterparts at DCA to refine that. But my expectation is roughly it'll last about 3 years, and we'll rewrite it at that point. And then at each council meeting, I'll provide you an update on each of, Bureau staff will provide you an update on each of these goals. And with that, we will move on to agenda item number 5, which is our division updates and statistical overviews. And first, moving to 5A, I'd like to turn it over to Heather Robinson, who I think is with us on WebEx. Heather?
Good morning. Yes, my name is Heather Robinson, and I am a budget analyst with the DCA Budget Office. I want to thank the Bureau and the Advisory Council members for allowing me to present the Bureau's fund condition statements as well as answer any questions. Today, I'm going to be speaking to agenda item 5A, the fiscal update, in the meeting materials, which are the Bureau's fund conditions. These fund condition statements give you a 5-year view of the Bureau's fund, and I will speak to each section, top to bottom, left to right. I will start with reviewing the fund condition for Electronic Appliance Repair Fund on page 38. Okay, the first column is a prior year 2021 actuals. The Bureau brought in a total of $2.5 million in revenue and expended a total of $2.7 million, leaving the fund with a reserve balance of about $3.8 million. This balance becomes the current year beginning balance, which you'll see at the top of column 2. The next column is 21-22 current year, which includes the projected revenue, which is based on fiscal month 10 projections. The Bureau projects an estimated $2.6 million in revenue. The Bureau's expenditures as of fiscal month 10 are projected to be approximately $2.7 million. This leaves a months in reserve balance of 12.1. This is the amount of time the board can continue normal operations without incoming revenues. Then we have the last 3 columns. We have 22-23, the budget year, 23-24, budget year +1, and 24-25, budget year +2 projections. These projections are based on the current year governor's budget, except for the income from surplus, which is formula driven. Budget year +1, and budget year 2 are assumed realized, meaning the Bureau expends to the full appropriation. I would like to point out, and this will be the case for all fund conditions, that one of the main driving factors to expenditures and the incremental increase in future years is a result of personal service adjustments. These include general salary increases, as well as employee comp and retirement rate adjustments. The Budget Office includes an ongoing 3% increase to expenditures on the fund condition statements to account for these ongoing incremental adjustments. If there are no questions, I can move on to Home Furnishings and Thermal Insulation Fund on page 39.
Any questions from the council on EAR?
Yep. Yeah, hi Heather, this is Don Lucas. I just have a question about the months in reserves, because I think this is the first time I've seen a case where you're projecting only 2 months of reserve, and is the Bureau comfortable with that type of reserve?
Heather, would you mind just speaking briefly to what our typical reversion is for EAR, and then I'll talk about the fee study.
I second the same question.
Let me see, give me a second. So right now it does say 2.2, and that's assuming that the expenditures for the future years will be expended to their full appropriation, which they won't be. Historically, we've reverted enough and had enough savings that you guys do not spend to that full appropriation, so that won't stay that low.
So what I would say is you're right to be concerned. Just because I personally am way too cheap, which hopefully the managers will attest to, We typically, the budget office always has to assume our full appropriation is going to be spent. So if the legislature says that I can write a $1,000 check every month, the budget office will assume I spend that full $1,000. Now, by virtue of the fact that I've got vacancies, and I'm especially out of all of these three programs, very sensitive about any position where EAR money is spent on that position. So I'm hesitant at times to fill those vacancies quickly. And any sort of purchases that program may need, it requires a lot for me to essentially authorize that. It means that there's typically an amount of money that just goes back. And so with those reversions, it's not as bad. But in addition to that, the legislature has required that essentially we conduct a fee study, which we're currently undergoing by a contractor named CPS HR in October, and this will be in more detail later in the meeting as well, in agenda item number 6. In October this year, I plan to present you a report of what that review entails.
What's the company that we're having to do with that?
It's called CPS HR.
So I was a little confused too, to follow up on Don's, because I noticed that there's not really an adjustment to our revenue. Revenue points seem like they're pretty solid all the way across this, and I don't see a lot to the expenditures changing very much. So I was wondering the same thing. How are we depleting our reserves so quickly?
So as Heather mentioned, the expenditures do assume a 3% increase, which is, it's a bad word right now, but it's typically tied to inflation because that's the consistent thing across.
Right, but again, I wasn't seeing it on this. I mean, the dog hunts all the way across the board on expenses on all these line items. So that's where I was looking at it, going, we're only going up 100,000 each year, but we're going down. I would $2.5 million each year. Just seemed like it was a little bit off on the.
Got it. Well, if you look, Heather, correct me if I'm wrong, but the one I'd direct your attention to is right below total resources. If you look at the expenditures, and then you see 111 Department of Consumer Affairs, you see how that steadily grows? So that.
Right, but we're talking 100,000 over each year.
Correct.
But we're going $2.5 million down each year. 4 months down 1 year. Yeah. Another 4 months down, another. It just seemed like it was a big drop for the 100,000 increase.
Got it.
Year over year.
I don't actually have that concern.
Okay.
We can actually walk through the numbers in some detail if you like with Heather.
Don't need to. Just
okay.
It was something that just came up to me going, oh, that same with Don going, okay, wait a minute, where are we going with it? But okay.
So again, the way this projection looks, it does look like sometime in 25, 26, I'm in trouble.
I think where I was going is the cliff at.
By way of just the way that we run our operations, I would actually put it several years past that, just because we never spend what we're allotted, nor does any of the three programs do that.
Does the DCA operate in the use it or lose it kind of mindset
when
it comes to budget?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Heather, is there anything you'd like to add?
Nope. You did a pretty good job. Maybe you could brief the rest. Just kidding.
No, go for Hefty. Thank you.
All right. So for home furnishings and thermal insulation, that's going to be page 39. We're just going to be going over the prior year, 2021, and the current year, 21-22. For prior year, the Bureau brought in a total of $5 million in revenue and expended a total of $3.9 million, leaving the fund with a reserve balance of about $6 million. And for current year, the Bureau projects an estimated $5.8 million in revenue. Expenditures as of fiscal month 10 are projected to be approximately $4.6 million, and leaving the months in reserve at 13.4. Do you have any questions on this fund?
I'll open it to public comment once Heather's done. I just want to see if the council had.
I'm good.
Heather, you want to do HHM?
Sure. If you could promote Karen Munoz, she does have something to add.
Oh.
Working on it.
Hold
on just a moment, please.
Or budget manager, sorry.
All right, Karen, we've promoted you. During the promotion process, you may have remuted your attempt to unmute. And it looks like you are unmuted. All right, this is the moderator. Karen, we see that you're unmuted, but we do not hear audio from you yet. Bear with me just a moment. I'm going to show a visual to see if we can help correct that. We're going to show this slide for just a moment here, and then we're going to progress to our next audio text slide.
Can you guys hear me now?
Wonderful. You're coming in loud and clear.
Can you guys hear me now? I apologize.
Yes,
we
go
can,
ahead,
Karen.
please.
Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Bueller?
Yes, we can.
All right, I'll try this one more time because I wasn't hearing you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
can.
can.
Okay, so apparently I can't hear you guys, but I will go ahead and speak and I'll let Heather, I'll talk to Heather via Teams, but I wanted to let you guys know because you guys were questioning the months in reserve. Just to add on to that, when we're looking at smaller funds or smaller budgets, when you decrease or increase the expenditure line items by even a small amount, the months in reserves will drastically decrease. But if you were to revert even a small amount, that too will also increase the funds extremely higher. So if the Bureau were to revert $200,000, that might increase the funds from 2.2 to like 5 or 6 months in reserves. So it when we're looking at a smaller budget, those months in reserves could look bad, and we're looking at out years, but it's not of much of a concern. As if we were looking at a very, very large $40 million budget and the months in reserves decrease significantly, if that makes sense. But as Justin had mentioned, we are tracking, he's going to go over the CPS study and things like that for the funds for any future needs that the Bureau may have. And I don't have my speaker connected, so I can't hear if you have any other questions, but I'll let Heather address those questions if you have any to me via Teams.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that, Karen. Mike, if you wouldn't mind just in the chat letting her know, thank you.
So basically, you just allocated your future budget.
Yeah, I think, so Karen's comments as well as Heather's comments, I'll try to say it in a different way that I think may be helpful. I think similar to when we go visit our accountant, when I visit the budget office, they want the gloomiest picture so that I can be prepared. But again, they're not assuming a lot of growth because they want the worst case scenario. And they're also assuming sort of that the expenditures will climb when they don't always. And so they're doing their best to make sure that I stay prepared. And so what I would say is when you're looking at this and you see that 2.2 months in reserve, that's your worst case scenario, as opposed to just the way things typically go. And we're not spending our appropriation fully each year. We're just not in that dire of straits. However, we definitely do need to look at it because over the long term, we will be in trouble.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah. With that, Heather, would you mind doing HHM?
Give me 1 second. All right, that's going to be on the next page, page 40. For prior year, the Bureau brought in a total of $3.7 million in revenue and expended a total of $1.7 million, leaving the fund with a reserve balance of about $5 million. For current year, the Bureau projects an estimated 4.1 million in revenue. Expenditures as of fiscal month 10 projected to be approximately $1.8 million, and that leaves the months in reserve at 29.1. Any questions on this one?
Not a question, but a comment, mainly for the Bureau, is that while we are the fat and sassy fund, and we expect to have some more expenses once we do some proactive enforcement, we do appreciate the conservative nature of your spending.
Ashley, I would like that word for word in the minutes, please.
Right. And signed, right?
In addition to that, Steve, I'll make my promise to you now. I plan to spend a lot of your money very soon. So we're working on that. So again, when we actually start doing the sting operations, you're going to see quite a serious expenditure there. Also, later in our agenda, we're going to be talking about a BCP that currently is looking like it'll appear in the budget. It may or may not. That will also expend quite a bit of money in additional personnel. And also the business modernization project that we're doing right now, that is quite costly, that IT conversion. They haven't sent us our bill yet, but they will very soon. So.
But some of those items are shared among the three different.
So when it comes to the BCP, that is strictly HHM. When it comes to business modernization, you're correct that it is shared, but the biggest load is coming from HHM, and that's because of the nature of where it came from. Because it was a PUC system, and because we have a very large data conversion, which we don't require for the other two programs, that's where the largest costs are coming from. Yeah. With that, any council comment on HHM? With that, David, would you mind opening it to public comment for just anything on the budget side?
We are now accepting public comment for anything on the budget side. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few moments now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to return to the agenda?
Yes. Heather, thank you so much for your briefing today. And Karen, thank you so much for your comments. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 5B, which I will hand it off to Kelly, who's our admin manager. She'll be providing the briefing. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kelly Williams. I'm the Administration Manager and will be giving you an update on staffing changes with the Bureau of Household Goods and Services. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, thank you. As of the January Advisory Council meeting, the Bureau's vacancy rate was over 34%. As we fill positions, the vacancy rate continues to decline. The current vacancy rate is at 30%. However, there are several positions in progress. When filled, these positions will bring our vacancy rate down to 14%. If we remain on course as of October 2022, we expect the vacancy rate to be less than 10%. Here's a synopsis of hiring by unit. Starting with the licensing unit, the number of vacant positions in licensing will decrease from 5 vacant positions to 1 position by mid-August. We were able to reclass 2 household movers licensing positions to make them multi-level analyst positions. The option for upward mobility makes the positions more appealing to potential candidates. Both positions have been filled, and the candidates started on Monday, June 13th. Interviews for an office technician and program specialist 2 in licensing should take place in early July. We expect these positions to be filled by September. The next unit to be discussed is the compliance unit. The number of vacant positions in the compliance unit is on track to decrease from 4 positions to 1 by September. Our new compliance manager, Shelby Nordman, will join us on July 1st. Shelby comes from the Contractors State Licensing Board's enforcement unit. This unit handles the most difficult and complex cases for CSLB and addresses all enforcement-related special projects, such as reports to the legislature, statistics gathering, or identifying and providing training and enforcement for staff. She also worked with numerous deputies, attorneys general, and testified in hearings. Shelby also spent more than 2 years conducting intake at CSLB and speaking with complainants to mediate disputes with contractors. Before joining state service, Shelby spent numerous years in the legal profession, serving as both a paralegal and as a transcriptionist. 2 of the vacant compliance unit positions will be posted shortly. We waited to post these positions so that the new manager could be involved in the hiring process. The administrative unit, which is new, will soon be fully staffed. The personnel liaison was hired in January and introduced at the last advisory council meeting. An office technician joined us in April. Ashley Ryder was promoted from office technician to the new role of executive support analyst. Ashley will be the point of contact for the advisory council. She will respond to general bureau questions from advisory council members, facilitate advisory council meetings, and complete the advisory council meeting minutes. She works on special projects and provides backup support for the contracts analyst and the personnel liaison positions. The last vacancy in the administration unit is the contract analyst position, and a highly qualified candidate is undergoing a background check. We anticipate this position will be filled by August. Moving on to the laboratory unit. Interviews for an environmental scientist in the laboratory unit will take place in the next few weeks. This leaves 2 textile technicians and 1 office technician vacancy to be filled. The Northern California Special Investigations team has 5 vacant positions. 3 of the positions are undergoing background checks, which are in the final stage of the hiring process. We hope to extend offers to 3 incumbents within the next few weeks. As of July 1, which is the start of the next fiscal year, the Bureau anticipates acquiring 4 additional special investigator positions from a budget change proposal. These positions will be split between the Northern California and Southern California investigation units. The 2 remaining Northern California special investigator positions and the 2 new positions from the budget change proposal are in progress and should be posted in July. The Southern California investigations team has 1 vacant position. The current vacancy in the 2 new positions will also be posted in July. Due to the lengthy background check process, we expect the 7 remaining special investigator positions to be filled by October. Does the council have any questions?
Just a comment. I want to commend you on bringing the vacancy rate down. I'm really impressed by that, especially in light of the low unemployment rate. So good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
The admin unit has been huge for hiring as well as procurement. Donald, I probably don't have to tell you, the equipment requests that the lab has, they make me look sideways. And so Kelly is the one with her team who is talking with the various echelons that need to review this about what the heck this equipment is I can't pronounce. Yeah. Any other questions from the council? David, would you mind opening it to the public?
We are now accepting public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to return to the agenda?
Sure. Kelly, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll move on to item 5C. Jacqueline Castro actually drew the short straw, so she is over at the Bureau joining us remotely, so I will hand it over to Jacqueline. Okay. Yeah. I apologize, everyone. I think we may be having a technical issue. We're looking into it right now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Oh, perfect. Okay, I'll go ahead and start again. My name is Jacqueline Castro. I am the licensing manager for the Bureau. I'll be reporting on the licensing statistics starting on page 41. The statistics for the last 3 months are consistent from what we've seen in the past year for electronic appliance repair registrations and home furnishings thermal insulation licenses. Please note that there is a slight increase in service contract seller licenses in the third quarter. On average, there is a slight fluctuation with service contract sellers as they are transient. In most cases, service contract sellers either go out of business, merge with other businesses, or merge with other businesses, which can be impactful depending on the amount of licensed locations per business. Within furniture and bedding retailers, there was a slight decrease. Furniture and bedding retailers are usually at the mercy of the market. While there's no certainty, it is the Bureau's understanding that the pandemic has had an impact on many businesses, making it difficult to keep their business operational. Currently, the Bureau's overall average processing times for EAR and HUFD is 30 to 45 days. With household movers, the amount of permits issued per quarter has remained consistent as well, with a slight increase in the number of active household mover permits each quarter. The total revenue collected in the third quarter is slightly lower due to outstanding quarterly reports that have not been yet received for January through March. The final due date for this quarterly report was May 16th. Quarterly report notices will be mailed out to the delinquent movers this week, and currently the overall average processing times for household movers is 60 to 120 days. This concludes the licensing statistical overview. Does the council have any questions?
David, do you mind opening it to public comment?
Absolutely. We are once again accepting public comment. If you would like to make a comment on licensing, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no requests for public comment, do you wish to return to the agenda?
Yes, thank you. Jacqueline, thank you so much. So we will move on to agenda item 5D. Unfortunately, Rosemary couldn't be with us today. She's had something come up. She certainly regrets not being here. Yafana, Lamar, and myself are going to do our best to be true to these statistics. If I can't answer your question, I promise you I'll have Rosemary follow up with a much better answer next week once she returns. So with that, I'll hand it over to Yafana for the update.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I was looking forward to seeing all the council members in person. So I'm going to start with the laboratory update that is before the statistics. So starting off with the accreditation activity for furniture and bedding. During the last 6 months, the laboratory continued testing furniture and bedding while preparing for and participating in a 2-day remote surveillance assessment for laboratory accreditation, which is required to conduct these testing programs. Continuing accreditation was granted on April 19th, 2022. In the coming year and prior to April 2023, the furniture and bedding program is scheduled to undergo a 3-day on-site assessment to continue that accreditation. Accreditation for thermal insulation. An on-site assessment was conducted on December 6th, 2021. This was a reschedule from 2020, during which travel restrictions did not allow the on-site assessment. And then on March 29th, the Bureau's contract with the National Institute of Standards and Technology and the National Voluntary Laboratory Accreditation Program, commonly known as NIST-NAVLab, was executed, which allowed our laboratory's thermal insulation program to once again be granted accreditation status on April 13th, 2022. With that accreditation, in-house thermal insulation testing has resumed. The laboratory is once again preparing for the biennial 3-day NAVLab on-site assessment. It is anticipated the assessment will be scheduled for late summer, and we hope that COVID-related factors will not cause another delay or rescheduling. Moving on to the thermal insulation directory. The directory was updated and posted to our website in March. Manufacturers selling thermal insulation in California must be licensed with the Bureau and be listed on the directory in order to sell their thermal insulation products in California. The directory is typically updated and posted on the Bureau's website on a semi-annual basis. So you can find that directory on our main page under What's New. It's also under Publications. Next is staffing concerns for the laboratory. Kelly mentioned it at a high level. Rose asked that I give an update on it specifically for the lab. So there are currently 4 positions that are vacant: 1 environmental scientist, 2 textile technicians, and 1 office technician. Interviews for the vacant environmental scientists are being scheduled. We anticipate to fill the position by late summer or early fall. The textile technician position is being considered for possible reclassification to increase the pool of candidates. Additionally, the lab supervisor intends to reclassify the office technician position to a staff services analyst to better meet the operational needs of the lab, which can be very technical. Until these positions are filled, responsibilities and duties of the vacant positions are being shared among the remaining environmental scientists and textile technicians. So are there any questions from council members about any of the topics I just touched on in the update?
Doesn't look like it, Pat.
Okay. All right, David, can you please open it up for public comment for any questions or comments?
Absolutely. We are once again open for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment in the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to return to the agenda?
Yes, please. Okay, so from here, Chief Paddock will present the laboratory statistics for the last 4 quarters. This information can be found on page 44 of the materials. Back to you, Chief Paddock.
Thank you, Fauna. So we'll just start with the first table, which is actually a slide on the screen as well for the public, which is just our actual statistics for samples collected and tests conducted. In the first box, you'll see the TB117 2013, which is, again, just our flammability test for furniture products. In this, we don't really see a lot of change in our statistics quarter by quarter. One thing I forgot to note, which I just totally went over in my script, and I'm sorry I forgot it. Throughout all of these statistical updates in item number 5, you'll notice that previously we reported longer time periods. In my experience working with other DCA programs, I think it's helpful for you to look at what we're doing quarter by quarter so you can see any sort of anomalies and judge whether we're doing our job and how our workload is doing. So at my direction, these statistics will be presented on a quarterly basis. Again, if you have any objection to that, or if you'd like a different level of detail, I'm happy to talk with you one-on-one, or you can provide a comment shortly on that. When it comes to the 117 testing, in this instance, we are typically per quarter doing about 20 tests, a 19 pass, 1 fail. That's about what we're seeing. Moving into what on the table is 16 CFR 1633, which is just our mattress flammability test. In that, we're usually doing about 5 per quarter, 3 pass, 2 fail. That's about what you're seeing there. So there aren't a lot of changes in that statistic. What you'll see in the past quarter is essentially a bit of a lower number. I think that's an anomaly. It was just a matter of scheduling. But typically what you'll see is about 5 tests per quarter. Last but not least, this is where I would want to direct your attention to. It's thermal insulation. You'll notice some zeros recently, and that was because we had a pause in accreditation because of COVID-19. And so we had a lapse in our accreditation, and so we had to essentially shut what our operations were on site. A lot of our outsourcing was still able to be done, which was a certain amount of tests, but a lot of what we do inside house, we had to pause. Now, our accreditation is good to go, and we are back up and running and doing tests as we speak. But that's just a comment on the thermal insulation that you see there. And then finally, when it comes to bedding, that's an analysis of the actual content, pillows, comforters. Usually we're doing about 6 bedding products per quarter, all at the moment have passed. And then finally, I'll just direct your attention to the test totals. That's just adding up everything that you saw there. Moving on, I'll open it up to comment, but if you want me to stop, that's fine as well. We're moving on to just label reviews. And this is essentially the law label TB1117 as well, the label, to see if there's any minor issues. That could be like a font size, things of that nature. If there's a moderate issue, which is just some sort of missing material typically, and then a major issue, which is actually something where instead of giving you essentially a corrective letter, we're actually going to issue a citation. This breaks down the statistics. I don't see any anomalies in these numbers at the moment. There is quite a lot of variance as we do our tests quarter to quarter. But so far, nothing in this area really strikes me as unusual. Moving on, this is just our flame retardant statement analysis. It looks like for the most part, everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing. We had one check box, and that was quite a while ago, that there's FRs. So I think what I would say is what Senator Leno's intent with his bill, I think, has come to fruition as part of passing TB 117 and the disclosure of whether you have FRs in the product. I think for the most part, you've seen industry accept that. And moving forward, I think you're going to see 99% of the time no FRs added, just because there isn't any economic reason to in the first place. With that, we will move on to our DTSC analysis. DTSC stands for the Department of Toxic Substances Control, and I think as many of you are aware, we have a contract with them to send samples where if you actually say you have no added flame retardant chemicals, they actually do a detailed analysis to see if what you're saying is correct. At the moment, we have one fail. We plan to do an enforcement action on that, but otherwise it looks like most manufacturers are doing what we saw. And last but not least, I will turn to the manufacturer locations table. I would like to relabel this the Bert Grimes table. I knew Bert was going to ask me about this, so we made sure we got it in there. Hopefully he likes it. I'll be curious to hear his comments here shortly. But this is essentially just giving you a breakdown on the various tests I just talked about, whether it was done by a California licensee, whether it was done by a United States licensee, or whether it was done by a licensee who is overseas. So this is a breakdown of that. And with that, I will, I don't think there's any other anomalies in the statistics I'd like to comment on at this time. There is a bit of a nuance when it comes to thermal insulation, because thermal insulation is licensed by material for a business rather than a specific location. We think we try to capture it fairly here, but if you'd like specifics on that, I can give you a breakdown. But otherwise, I think that this is true to form as far as whether it's a California company, a United States company, or an overseas company. With that, I'll open it first to the council for any comment.
So I have a couple of questions about the failures, especially the thermal insulation. So it looks like it's a fairly high failure rate, and I'm curious what the reasons for the failure are.
So for the most part, the ones that I'm privy to myself are E84 violations. We have currently pursued we're currently in the course of, we have issued citations to 3 different companies, 2 of which have now had a citation review conference. And the final outcome of those conferences and a publishing of that information, I would say would happen definitely by October of this year. Again, there is an opportunity for further appeal, but I think it's very likely that we'll provide information on our website about those violations. And there's actually quite a few more in the pipeline where we're issuing citations as we speak. And that's actually being done by the compliance unit.
Okay, great.
And we're just to be fully forthright, we're going slow to go fast. So we had a total of several violations. I asked that we do sort of one at a time so that we could have a lessons learned, because it's been a while. And then based on that, we're about to speed up.
Good. Okay. My other comment was going to be on the label review, but since you're revising that, I'll wait until that comes up later.
Got it.
So that's good. But it is interesting to see that the overseas number for the label failures is the predominant.
Yes. Yes.
I know we've been asking about that several times, so thank you for providing that. And I do think Bert will be happy.
I'm curious to hear once we open it to public comment. Any additional comment from the council? David, if you wouldn't mind opening it to public comment.
With pleasure. We are once again open for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. And we have a request for comment from Bert Grimes. Bear with us just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
First of all, I'd just like to comment, I do love the location table. I think one thing to note on that is an awful large percentage of the furniture that comes in to the United States is from overseas. And that's probably why the numbers are so high. I would like to see if we could continue to successfully inspect more of the overseas products, because I really don't know how many that you're picking up each time, and it's just something we need to look at, is make sure we really are clamping down on the overseas manufacturers. And I don't know what legal remedies we have if we find somebody who's consistently in violation.
So Bert, I appreciate the comment. What I would say is it is trickier when you're dealing with an overseas licensee. We can certainly pursue an administrative action. However, my rebuttal to myself on that is essentially you could have the entity essentially close and just reopen as a new entity, and because they're so far afield, it's difficult to essentially regulate that. What I would say is you're going to see some commentary in our sunset report regarding this, as well as some augmentations to how we could change our statewide withhold, essentially regulations and laws, so that as products come in, we can more quickly shut it down until there is compliance. And the sunset report will be coming at the end of the year, so stay tuned, you will be seeing it. David, any additional public comment?
There are no additional requests for public comment. Do you wish to return to the agenda?
Yeah, thank you. All right, everyone. Again, if you do have any questions on the statistics after the meeting or any members of the public, please feel free to contact me. Again, I think the chat has my phone number. My email is pretty simple too. It's just justin.paddock@DCA, which stands for Department of Consumer Affairs.ca.gov, and I'll be happy to follow up with any questions. And with that, we will turn to agenda item 5E, enforcement, which I'll hand off to Nicole.
Thank you, Justin. Good morning. My name is Nicole Bowles. I'm the Supervising Special Investigator for the Bureau of Household Goods and Services, and I oversee the Northern California Enforcement Field Operations. It's a pleasure to be here today in person and to meet the council members in person. I'm excited to share, after 31 years of civil service, Supervising Special Investigator Rick Vellucci will be retiring in September 2023. Rick's departure is bittersweet. We wish him all the relaxation and happiness retirement brings, but we will miss his expertise and presence in the field. Until his official retirement, he will be in a consulting role for the Bureau. As the Bureau's Enforcement Division, we are conducting outreach to consumers by presenting at senior Scam Stopper events hosted by the Assembly members in their respected districts. We are also presenting at the California District Attorneys Association by way of consumer protection roundtables and local task force meetings. As Kelly touched on earlier, we have 6 vacancies in the Special Investigations Unit. 5 of those are in Northern California. 1 of those are in Southern California. 3 of those vacancies we have candidates for that are undergoing background checks, and we hope to have those positions filled by the end of June. Moving on to the enforcement statistical overview. Upon running new HHM reports for the previously reported data, it was discovered that data was skewed by 28 cases. These cases are presumed to have been reported after being prematurely closed. Staff are performing an audit of these cases, and we will report our findings to the council during October's meeting. If you look on page 47, Table 2, you'll notice between the October and December quarter, the Compliance Unit did not conduct any HHM investigations. On the table, it reflects a 0. The cases that would have been assigned to the Compliance Unit were automatically referred to the Special Investigations Unit due to staffing and training issues. So we wanted to point that out to the council and the public. On page 48, Table 2, we'd like to highlight the HHM citation amount increase from $9,000 to $41,000 between the January and March quarter. This is a 355% increase. We're very proud of that. Moving on to proactive enforcement operations. Field staff have performed 4 compliance checks in San Joaquin, Stanislaus, and Contra Costa counties, resulting in 15 unlicensed citations for the ear and Husky businesses. Moving on to Holt Hostage and the Load Release Project. The Enforcement Division continues to assist consumers in locating and obtaining their goods throughout the state. As a result of our efforts, each year the number of consumers reunited with their goods increases. In July of 2020 through June 2021, there were 68 hold hostage loads released. And in July
through July 2021 through March 2022, there were 109 hold hostage release of goods. That's a 60% increase from the last report. And without the cooperation of the storage facilities, these recoveries would nearly be impossible to complete. We're grateful for their efforts to protect consumers alongside the Bureau. Last but not least, to touch on sting operations, Chief Paddock is in the process of clarifying sting procedures with the Division of Investigation. Once the procedures are finalized, the Bureau will conduct our second and third household mover sting operations, and we're looking forward to sharing those results at the next Advisory Council in October. At that, that is the conclusion of my report. Does the Council have any questions?
Yes, I have a couple of questions, and welcome and thank you very much. Appreciate all your efforts. First of all, the hold hostage numbers, they're not in this document, right? We don't have a table for those?
No, you do not.
So would you please once again give me those numbers?
Sure. July 2020 through June 2021, there were 68. In July 2021 through March 2022, there were 109. And we can provide you a table of the hold hostage release in the October meeting if you'd like to see that.
Please, and those numbers reflect shipments that have been returned to the people who, the owners of the goods.
Yes, sir, recovered.
So those are terrific numbers. That's something to be very proud of. I would say that's the best numbers in the country by far. So congratulations to the Bureau on that real critical project and your success with that. We support that.
Thank you, sir.
As I look at the citations assessed, previously Rick had reported that no citations in these tables were assessed against permitted movers. Does that continue to be the case?
That does, sir.
Okay, that, again, excellent work. That's all I have. Congratulations. We really appreciate your efforts, and the success you're having is having a big impact on the moving public, so thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So, Steve, we'll add that table from here on out.
Okay.
Yeah. With that, David, any public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I do have one other question. So when I see citations issued, to me, that would indicate that those are legally closed cases. So will all of those cases be reported? And I get a feeling they won't. And my big concern is that the only names that you guys will be able to report are those of those that are in compliance with the program, permitted movers, whereas those that are doing the greatest damage are the people completely outside, but yet again, they're selling a name brand as well.
So just because they've been issued, the process isn't final. That's essentially step one. They have an opportunity to be heard. And now, as I speak, I'm questioning, I'm fairly certain we can still put the entity name on our website. They just wouldn't have a permit number associated with them. But I also want to open it up to Michael to see if I'm actually misspeaking when it comes to an unlicensed permittee.
That's correct. Once a citation is issued, that's a public document, and the Bureau can post those along with any other public document it chooses to incorporate into its website. So the answer there is definitely yes.
So Steve, yes, you will see it.
So just for my simple thought process, that there is no difference whether you're a permitted person creating with a violation or a non-permitted entity with a violation. All of those are able to be reported on the website.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
David, any public comment?
We are now open for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to return to the agenda?
I do, thank you. And Steve, I have a nasty habit of saying hold hostage when I mean recovery. So just for members of the public, there is a distinction. Hold hostage is essentially the worst of the worst. That is an individual who has your goods and saying, you're not going to see them again unless you give me an additional amount of money. Those are incredibly rare, but they do happen. A recovery is an instance of you just don't have your goods, and it could be for a multitude of reasons, one of which maybe you didn't pay your bill, maybe there's some confusion over your bill, or maybe the mover just went out of business and is gone. So I just want to make sure I have that distinction. I say hold hostage when I mean recovery, so my apologies. Yeah. And with that, I think we will move on to agenda item number 6. Thank you so much, Nicole. That'll be our legislative and policy update by Yafana Lamar and Diana, and I think Yafana is kicking it off.
Hi, good morning again. Before I get into the agendized legislation, I want to give you guys a quick update on items of interest in the policy unit. So first is the state budget. The budget is memorialized in bills SB 154 and AB 154. These were not published, the amendments weren't published in time to get these bills into the materials, so I apologize for that. The deadline for the legislature to pass the budget is today, but both bills were passed on Monday. So the bills have been sent to the governor's office for signature. He has until June 30th to get the budget signed, or he can make amendments with his authority. For that budget, we submitted a budget change proposal. This has been mentioned a couple times today, to create 4 special investigator positions dedicated to household mover proactive enforcement. That BCP was approved by the administration, and the spending authority for those positions was included in the governor's proposed budget in January. The legislature listed the BCP in a document titled 2022/23 Legislative Budget Package Actions, with the action listed as approve as budgeted. So the legislature recommended that that BCP be included in the budget for fiscal year 22-23. That document is published on the Senate website. If any council members want a link to that, I can send that to you. Because the administration already approved the spending authority for those positions and it was passed by the legislature, we are very optimistic that these positions will remain in the budget when it is signed by the governor. Additionally, the budget includes a one-time spending authority for the business modernization project. This is where Steve was asking about if we are spreading out the business modernization costs throughout all 3 programs. Yes, we are. Like Chief Paddock said, a big chunk of it is going towards household movers because of the data conversion. There's also an element of an enforcement module that does not exist on the PUC's current system that has to be built from scratch. So that adds to the cost that will come out of the household mover fund for that project. So you'll see in the state budget, there's that one-time augmentation for BizMod. There's also one more position. It's a SSA in the compliance unit that was a result of AB 1221. That bill changed the manner in which service contracts could be sold. It allows continuous until canceled or month-to-month contracts to be sold, so that position will field complaints relating to those contracts. The next thing is the sunset report. The policy unit continues to work on writing the sunset report. We're still taking suggestions from advisory council members if you have anything you'd like us to add to the issues section. The report will also include a legislative proposal to update each practice act, and we're currently developing all 3 of those. If you have suggestions for amendments that you'd like to see to any of the practice acts, we're also taking advisory council member input on those as well. As a reminder, sunset is a good time to propose legislation that makes big changes because the legislature will be focused on policy issues of the Bureau that it normally may not have the time to do in a regular year. Next is Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, or FMCSA training. The Bureau has been invited by FMCSA to attend a household goods in-service training on August 2nd and 3rd as a guest speaker. The training will be conducted for FMCSA personnel, and the Bureau will participate in a panel with other state partners and guest speakers to discuss best practices, successes, and areas of improvement in the Household Goods State Enforcement Partnership Program. This meeting will be in Milwaukee. I am not sure if I'll be able to attend in person or online, but I will definitely be there in any way that I can participate. Finally, legislation not on the agenda. At the last meeting, Member Whitecamp asked the Bureau to follow AB 294 by Assemblymember Santiago. That bill would have created the Vehicle Towing and Storage Board within the Department of Consumer Affairs to regulate and permit the estimated 5,800 vehicle tow companies in California. The bill died the day after the last meeting when it failed to meet the House of Origin deadline, which is the deadline for the bill to move out of the House in which it was introduced. So it never cleared the Assembly floor. That is why I did not include it in your meeting materials. That bill's last location was the Assembly Committee on Appropriations. It carried a $2 million annual fiscal, so it was held there. Are there any council member questions about the non-agendized items before I get into the legislation? Okay, seeing, hearing none. David, can you please open it up for public comment?
We are once again accepting public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take about 15 seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to return to the agenda?
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay, so I'll start with the agendized legislation. The first is AB 224 by Assemblymember Daley. This is the Household Mover Act exemption bill. This bill would exempt companies that do not pack or load household goods from having to get permitted under the Household Mover Act. This bill's last location was in the second House Appropriations, so it has a deadline of August 31st of this year. Although the sponsor said they do not plan to move the bill, we are still watching it just because it is technically still alive. Are there any questions about this bill from council members? Okay, and David, is it okay if I save public comment for after all four bills?
I think that's a question for legal, but I believe the answer is yes.
Yes, that's correct. This is Michael Knotes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to AB 2956 by the Committee of Transportation. This bill language begins on page 55. This bill makes technical non-substantive changes to the vehicle code to conform to SB 19, which transferred administration of the Household Movers Act to the Bureau. This came about because household movers were being ticketed by the California Highway Patrol for failure to have a motor carrier property registration with the DMV. Permitted household movers do not have to have that registration because the vehicle code was not updated to reflect the Bureau's permit, CHP officers did not recognize a Bureau issued permit as qualifying for that exemption. Since this was the technical clarifying legislation, they are cleaning up the entire vehicle code to conform to SB 19. So there are 8 sections that are being amended. You'll see amendments throughout the bill language where it changes PUC to the Bureau, code references from the Public Utilities Code to the Business and Professions Code, and household goods carrier to household mover. This bill is scheduled to be heard by the Assembly Committee on Transportation on June 28th. Are there any questions from council members? Okay, moving on to SB 983 by Senator Eggman. This is the Consumer Warranty Protection and Express Warranties Bill. It begins on page 89 of your materials. This bill would have required electronics and appliance manufacturers to provide the owner of the product and service dealers with manuals, functional parts, tools required to diagnose and repair the electronics and appliances for at least 3 years after manufacture for items with a value of between $50 and $99.99, and then 7 years for products with a wholesale value of $100 or more. This bill died on suspense in the Senate Committee on Appropriations based on unknown costs to the courts to adjudicate potential violations. Are there any questions about this bill? Okay, final bill. Senate Bill 1443 by Senator Roth, this is the Business and Professions. It's an omni bill from the Business and Professions Committee. The language begins on page 95. This bill follows SB 607 from last year that extended the Bureau's sunset review by a year. That bill, however, did not extend specific sections that authorize various licensing and enforcement activity of the Bureau. For example, on page 102, section 54 of the bill, you'll see that there's an amendment to extend the Bureau's authority to require service dealers to annually renew their registrations to, that section is extended to January 1st, 2024. So this bill does that throughout the electronic and appliance repair and home furnishings and thermal insulation acts. So they'll all be extended to January 2024, which is when the sunset bill will extend all code sections for the Bureau by 4 years. So this is a 1-year extension to conform to the postponement of our sunset review by a year, and then we'll get another 4 years with the sunset legislation. This bill is scheduled to be heard by the Assembly Committee on Business and Professions on June 28th. Are there any questions about this bill from council members?
Ma'am.
Okay, David, are there any questions or comments from the public about any of the bills I just discussed?
We are now accepting public comment on the previous bills. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take about 15 seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to return to the agenda?
Yes, please. Okay, so the next agenda item is business modernization. In February and March, the business modernization cohort 2 programs, so we're in cohort 2 along with structural pest, the architects board, and cemetery funeral bureau. We reviewed bids for developers. The contract was awarded effective April 25th and work began immediately. The Bureau has identified its top priority as the household mover application and enforcement functionality. This is to allow household movers to be move to a DCA-supported system, which our other industries already are. Data conversion for household movers began in December, and in May, the developers met with Bureau subject matter experts 3 times to begin building the application in Lumon, which is the name of the new system. After the user interface and back office functionality for the application is built out, the subject matter experts and I will begin user acceptance testing over the summer to ensure all functionality works as intended and as needed by the Bureau and applicants. The tentative go live date is still set for early October, with quarterly report submissions set to go live before the end of the year. And then all other license types will go into a mixed order of Ear and Hufty, starting with furniture and bedding manufacturers and service contract sellers and administrators. We'll then proceed through all license types until everything is on the system, and that is scheduled to be complete by November 2023. Are there any questions about the business modernization project from council? Okay, I don't see any. David, can you please open it up for public comment?
We are now accepting public comment on business modernization. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take about 15 seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to return to the agenda?
Yes, please. Thank you, David. And back to you, Chief Paddock.
So with that, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the CPS fee study, which is agenda item number 6F. Diana Godinez will provide us an update for that. Diana?
Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, I am Diana Godinez, one of the policy managers for the Bureau. I am here to provide an update on the fee study being conducted by CPS HR Consulting. They have completed the task of developing the work allocation time study to determine the percentage of time each staff spends on each high-level process over the course of a year. They are currently using this data combined with Bureau financial projections to arrive at a recommended fee level for licensing, renewal, delinquent, and penalty fees for the 3 programs. The goal is to set fees at levels commensurate with staff workload and ensuring the generated revenue covers the projected expenditures. CPS HR is currently developing the draft report in which we are anticipating being able to review by summer. This will be followed by the final report and meeting with the Bureau to present the methodology used in their findings and fee level recommendations. The Bureau will present the report at the October meeting and include the report in our meeting materials. That is all I have on agenda item 6F. If there are any questions.
So I have a question. How will, once this fee study is complete, how will the process proceed as far as comment, modification, et cetera?
So at the October council meeting, we'll present the report, and we'll certainly take comment at that time. At the same time, what's happening in the background is essentially the sunset review report is being written. Based on the feedback we get from our council, as well as the review process that we'll undergo, we'll make recommendations in our sunset report to the legislature about what we think may or may not be appropriate, whether a fee should be adjusted, stay the same, et cetera. I think one thing that I did reference in our January meeting is I would like to consider, and I've asked CPS HR to consider fund consolidation, and also whether or not it's feasible to walk away from sort of a quarterly financial basic fee for the HHM regulators. Again, I'm waiting for that report. We'll see what it says. But it'll certainly inform what we write in our sunset review report. Then once that report is done, it goes through various levels of review. It's actually submitted to the legislature in late December of this year. And then the sunset review process begins throughout the course of the next year. Typically, that's going to be a hearing that I'll appear at the legislature in March of that year. And then as Yafana mentioned, there'll be a sunset review bill. Mm-hmm. So if I've advocated for a particular fee change and the legislature and legislative staff agree with that, you would actually see that proposed fee change in the bill, and then that would move through the typical legislative process like any other bill. If it's eventually signed by the governor, then that fee would take effect January 1 of the following year.
Okay.
Any other questions from council? David, would you mind opening it to the public?
We are once again open for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. And we have a request from Moving Experience. Bear with us just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Hello.
Welcome. Go ahead, please.
Hey there, this is Aaron Sireman of the Moving Experience. I was just trying to clarify what was said earlier about the legislation between the Highway Patrol and the motor carrier permits. Was that something that was pushed through, or is that just kind of in process and on the table now? Thank you.
It is in process right now, but it's an omnibus bill that's had no opposition to the best of my knowledge. Fauna, correct me if I'm wrong, which means I do anticipate that will be successful, and that would take effect January 1 of next year. Again, I can't predict the future, but I give it a really, really good odds at this point. Fauna, anything to add?
Yes, it's scheduled to be heard by the Transportation Committee on June 28th. So that is a public hearing. You can watch it online. The links are posted to the Senate website the day of the hearing.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Seeing no other requests for public comment, do you wish to return to the agenda?
Yes, please.
Sure. We saved the best for last. Diana, you want to go into 6G?
Yes. So this is page 112 of your meeting materials. The Bureau is providing the Council and public a preview of the proposed law label regulation in draft form. This draft has not yet been provided to legal for review, as we are opening it up for discussion and feedback today. We anticipate making more changes before entering the official rulemaking process, and we are encouraging anyone interested in the proposal to review this draft and provide comments regarding any change that you would like to see. This helps us with addressing issues beforehand and makes the rulemaking process a lot quicker and smoother. After we incorporate feedback we received today, we also plan to provide a copy to the Consumer Product Safety Commission staff to ensure they have the opportunity to look over our proposal to confirm our existing regulations with their new labeling requirements. And we will also seek feedback from the International Association of Bedding and Furniture Labeling Officials and several plumage industry experts. We also welcome you to forward this to any group you think may be interested in, especially any consumer groups. Two things you will notice: we are proposing to remove the percentage requirements for labels with the exception of products containing plumage. Also, we have not added yet, but we plan in the coming weeks to change the flammability statement for CCR 1374.3 to make it consistent with CPS's label requirements. While reading the changes made to the draft, keep in mind that anything underlined in each section is new language. Anything that is shown in strikeout is language that will be removed from existing language. If later you have further recommendations, you can send them to me at diana.godinez@dca.ca.gov. And any comments or questions on that?
So council, if you want, I can certainly take anything specific. You can direct us to a page number and we'll be happy to talk about it. Just to reiterate what Diana said, we're trying to do a couple of things. We're trying to remove some requirements that may or may not be onerous. That's why we are seeking any input from consumer groups, and that comes to the percentage requirement for businesses. We're also trying to simplify the labels because I think there certainly are overseas companies that I don't think are seeking compliance whatsoever with our labeling requirements, but I also appreciate that there are many companies out there where I think our regulations are more complex than they need to be at times. So we are just trying to simplify this. Again, it's still a very large regulation, but we're trying to just cut down our number of labels and make things a little bit easier for compliance. With that, if you want to direct me to a certain page, we'd be happy to discuss the specific edit. You also can take your time with this document. I plan to essentially, in the next 3 months, get as much feedback as I can, and then at that point, I will actually submit this package to DCA Legal to start the legal review process. Based on that, I guarantee you there will be things I have not foreseen that we'll need to polish and correct. But any changes that we make in that process, I'll continue to report back to you. Any comments from the council?
So a few comments. One is, you said you were going to go to consumer groups, but are you going to go to the manufacturers to see if they understand the new label and if they have any suggestions for improving it? Because they've had a lot of problems filling out the label properly.
Yes, so we've already presented to some manufacturers, and in addition to just the actual licensees, we also plan to submit it to several companies that sort of specialize in providing labels to manufacturers for their feedback as well. And Diana referenced IABFLO. IABFLO is just a fun acronym to say, but it's a conglomeration of our counterparts in other states. We're also seeking their feedback as well. And I think the number one area where we do need much more feedback before we're prepared to submit to legal for review is from the plumage industry. So we're working on sending this out to quite a few of those companies as well.
Good. So the other question, or another question is with the CPSC. Are they on board with what you're proposing? Is that going to be a problem?
I can't speak for them, nor do I expect CPSC as a body to provide me a comment to that effect. What I will say is I very much plan to submit to CPSC staff so that they can help me identify anything that is inconsistent, because the purpose of this regulation is to make it simpler for manufacturers to, at the same time they're meeting their federal obligation, to just meet California's obligation and be done.
Good.
So again, it's difficult to require a federal agency to provide me an official comment, but I certainly plan to make sure if any staff have pause, I'll meet with them, we'll see if there's an adjustment, so that level of review isn't necessary.
And the other thing is about the rollout dates on this. How is it going to coordinate? How long is it going to take you to finalize things, and how does that coordinate with the CPSC's date for their label? And there's going to be a period where 2 labels are going to be required? Or?
It's possible, but I highly doubt it. You may have an interim period where you have to draft a few awkward labels, but I will do my best with the understanding that in the regulatory process, just like with my budget, I'll do my best to sort of meet a consistent timeline so that there isn't a lot of overlap and it's consistent for California and nationally at the same time. But I promise you there are things I haven't foreseen that will be a hiccup along the way. I'll just have to update you as I go.
Okay, thanks.
Any additional comments from the council? Okay. David, if you wouldn't mind opening it to public comment.
This is the moderator. We are once again accepting public comment on the matter. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And our first request comes from Doug Anderson, who asks, where do we find a copy of the draft for review? We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, Doug, in case there's more to say. All right, Doug, we see that you've unmuted your microphone. And he's gone back on mute. Next, we have Bert Grimes. Bear with us just a moment.
Hold on, let me, I'll answer Doug's question, and Doug, if I don't answer the question to your satisfaction, just feel free to comment again. So it's available online as we speak. If you go to our main webpage, and there's several drop-down options, one of which is the second one from the left, which is Bureau Activities. If you click on that and then hit Council Meetings, which is one of the choices in that drop-down, it'll take you to our page where you can find our agenda and materials. If you click on the materials link, you'll see it in page 113 all the way through page 150. And then as we get more comments, we'll provide a different link on our website on a regulations webpage of the document for additional input. Sorry about that. Bert?
All right, Bert Grimes is next. Bear with us just a moment. We're sending you a request to unmute your microphone.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Bureau and especially Diana for reviewing the law label regulations for the improvements. I know it's been a lot of work. I think for manufacturers, it's going to streamline the process for us and make it easier for us to comply to the Bureau standards. And also think that for consumers, it's going to be less confusing for them. I think there was a survey report done by the Bureau a couple of years ago that said really only 35% of the consumers even look at the law labels. Maybe if we make them less confusing, they'll take a little more time to read it. But anyway, I just wanted to thank the Bureau for what they're doing.
Thank you, Bert.
Thank you, Bert.
Next, we have a request from Pascal Benyamini. Bear with us just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Thank you. And I wanted to just echo Bert Grimes's comments. I know a lot of work has gone into this draft, and we really appreciate the opportunity to comment and assist the Bureau in getting to the finish line on this. So again, thank you very much for all the hard work on this.
Thank you, Pascal.
That appears to be all of our requests for public comment at the moment. Do you wish to return to the agenda?
Yes, thank you so much. Diana, thank you so much for this reg package. I know it wasn't easy.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to sort of the last of our agenda items, agenda item number 7. I just wanted to confirm a couple things just with the council. We plan to do 10 a.m. again. Hopefully 10 a.m. works. For the moment, we'll plan to do it in this room as well. Hopefully traffic wasn't too bad getting here or flights weren't too bad. And anyone who will be just coming in remotely will actually have a notice location on that October 13th date. The one other thing I would say just before I open it to comment is in the October meeting, I asked that everyone bring their calendars because at that time we will set 2023. Just tentatively, we'll shoot for Thursdays. Again, Wednesdays are fine too, but we'll shoot for Thursdays, one of which will be February, one of which will be in June, and one will be in October. And we'll do that each year. But just if everyone can have their calendars ready, and we'll just lock 2023 in now so it's on everyone's calendar and we can be done with it. With that, I'll open it up to the council. Any questions or concerns about the 13th date or scheduling for 2023?
Pulling it up right now. No, it's actually a great day as it stands for me. So. Lock it now.
All right. With that, David, would you mind just opening it to public comment?
We are now accepting public comment to confirm future meeting dates. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no requests for public comment, do you wish to return to the agenda?
Yes, thank you so much. So we will move on to agenda item number 8, which is just future agenda items. So in a moment, council, I'll be asking you if there's anything you'd like me to report on. Before I do that, I'm going to give you several promises I absolutely will be reporting to you on in October, and then we'll open it up to the public. So my items, just for your record, is we will, as I said, we will give you updates on each of those strategic plan objectives on each of those goal pages, and we'll be doing that as part of our statistical update with you from each of our various units. Second, I'm going to give you a comprehensive report on ignition interlock devices as they stand now, as well as collaboration that we have with our other state agency partners, which includes the Bureau of Automotive Repair, Department of Motor Vehicles. Next, I plan to provide a detailed outreach plan that will cover the tail end of 2022 as well as our expectations in 2023. And that will encompass essentially any sort of events we plan to go to and how many events we expect. That will also entail any sort of public affairs office work that we're doing. We're actually working with them right now for a discussion on just movers, because right now we are in moving season. In addition, we hope to essentially give you a presentation on what we've been doing on the business modernization project. Hopefully by that time, we can essentially do a demonstration of what the system looks like for household movers and what you can expect to see in the coming months for Ear and Hufty. I can't promise it, but I highly suspect I'll be able to do that at that time. So we'll do our best to provide you a demonstration of that business modernization project. And then finally, we will give you a report on stings for the Household Movers Program. So with that, those are my promises to you that you will see on the next agenda. But with that, I'd like to open it up to council for anything they'd like to see in October or potentially in 2023 if October is too soon. So with that, council? Okay, David, would you mind opening it up to the public?
We are now accepting public comment on future agenda items. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to return to the agenda?
Yes, thank you. So we will move to our very last item, which is an adjournment. We don't need a motion or a vote. So at this point, I just want to thank everyone for their assistance today. Solid, once again, thank you so much for your help on the strategic plan and your facilitation of this meeting today. Mike, I want to thank you for the video services. Bureau staff, thank you so much. And council, thank you so much for the travel. And with that, the council meeting stands adjourned. I look forward to talking to you in October. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.